Welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Alicia Watley.
I'm Tim Havler.
And I'm Mike Brode.
So, Tim, what's today's scenario?
Homeowners policy, hail damage to a roof. The claim is submitted, but the named insured is hardly involved with the adjuster at all. It's the roofing repair person who's making all of the contact with the insurance company. They're pressing for a large settlement. The roofer says, we represent the insured. They agreed to it. We have a duly executed assignment of benefits. We're paying their deductible. You can just deal with us now. The insurance company requests a proof of loss from the named insured homeowner, but the roofer says, no, this is our claim now. The adjuster is uneasy about dealing with the roofer as an intermediary and is wondering if any of this conduct could be prohibited. So right off the bat, with today's topic, I want to acknowledge that most roofers are good, honest actors who work fairly with other parties. But even with all the good apples, there are some bad apples that do use coercive tactics, and we do need to be cognizant of that. So Alicia and Mike, to start it off, I was wondering if you've ever had anyone come knocking on your door after a storm and telling you that you have roof damage.
Lucky for me, I live in a condo building, so no one should be knocking at my door. I don't answer unless they're invited.
Mike?
I have had a number of folks stop by, especially after any kind of a storm, windstorm, hail event in the area here. None which luckily, knock on wood, impacted my home. But that doesn't matter. You're right, Tim, to some of the contractors who will stop by and claim to give you a free estimate and take a look, and you might have storm damage. And when I kind of explain that, well, I spent about 30 years in the insurance industry, and I'm pretty sure there's no damage to my roof, that usually ends the conversation and they move on to the neighbor's house. So a number of folks have stopped by to say hello.
And do you warn your neighbors about this practice?
I've talked to a couple of my neighbors, but a couple of them ended up getting new roofs. So maybe I should have taken advantage of it.
Yeah, earlier this summer, I had hail. It was quarter-inch tops. It wasn't a big deal. I did get my ladder and get up on the roof just to check, and there wasn't any damage. But still, I was getting flyers in the mail, and they all look the same. You know, they have the color-coded map of your area, and you're in the red section, of course. Then I started getting phone calls, which I don't know how they got my number, but they got my number.
There are always ways to get a number.
Yes. And I did talk to my neighbors, and it was the same with all of them. But I didn't end up talking to any of them. Like you said, Mike, when the insurance professionals, we kind of know what's going on here. So what kind of tactics specifically do they do that raise concern? On my list, I would say it's things like high pressure sales. It's false sense of urgency.
You have to get this done right now.
You have to get it done now.
You're gonna have leaking in your ceiling.
Right. It's going to cause more damage. And if we don't get our tarp up there, and if you don't sign on this dotted line today, you're going to have all sorts of problems. And another big flag would be any down payments up front, especially a full payment, but any down payments right there on the spot. You know, if you get a talented salesperson coming at your door, many susceptible homeowners will fall into this.
Especially the argument that, hey, we'll take care of everything for you. You don't have to worry about it. We'll deal with your insurance company. Maybe we can even work with you on your deductible. I mean, things start to sound too good to be true. They generally are too good to be true.
That's right. So all of this started, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 years ago is when it really got on everyone's radar. What you started seeing was a lot of state attorney generals issuing advisories. Just if a storm comes through, and this happens most often in the Midwest where you get the big windstorms, a state attorney general will just say, we know about these roofing scams, just be aware of them. The Better Business Bureau has been talking about this for a while. I guess it just comes up, roofing is a competitive business like any business, and some businesses are going to be out on the edge pushing the envelope. So if you can get that homeowner signed up before they even talk to any other roofers, that's one more customer for you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole, and folks are paid based on who they bring in the door. So that's a big incentive too, to some of the folks out there. So I think Tim, you hit it too. Make sure if you do have a contractor over, are they licensed? Are they insured? Do you have recommended from folks that you know, that you trust, that are business bureaus? Always a great source to find out information on a contractor. So do your homework too as a homeowner, and make sure you look into who might be coming out to do some work at your place.
Yeah, and there's different levels to these frauds too. There's so probably the worst example would be someone goes up on your roof and damages it themselves and then says it was a storm. I'm going to go ahead and say that's not all that common. Another really egregious one would be, it's called the deposit snatcher, where they will take your down payment and then immediately just disappear and you'll never hear from them again. Probably most commonly is they will do the repair job, but not with the best materials and not with the best workmanship. So the homeowner doesn't really even realize there's an issue until a few years down the road when they see those shingles are coming off already prematurely. And by then,
and I bet the problem is
gone.
they take a down payment or a payment where they want to use premium materials, but then don't.
Right. Well, their goal is to get the down payment, and then whatever happens after that, they are just trying to save money and get out of Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
I like the deposit snatcher. That's a good name, Tim.
Yeah, right. So this is frustrating for insurance companies. I mean, it's a wider societal problem, but it's also frustrating for insurance companies because what happens is you get a homeowner who's been told by somebody that they are getting a free roof. But what happens if the adjuster gets up on that roof and sees there's no damage? Now you have a customer who thought they were getting a free roof, and it's the insurance company that has to tell them that that's not the case.
And yeah, it can be especially tough if you're up on the roof when you make that call and somebody removes your ladder. So that was a lesson learned through the School of Hard Knocks as an adjuster. Don't deny it on the roof. Yes.
Yeah, I like it. So there are some specific laws on the books about these kinds of things, but it's not nearly as comprehensive as it could be. Occasionally you'll see the authorities go after a single bad actor, but that's just a drop in the bucket. There's been some laws that are generally applicable, but before getting into that, that's the legal side. I think a lot of this comes down to the adjuster sides of things, Mike, the adjuster skills, as far as being fair but firm and dealing with someone and giving pushback where pushback is necessary. Is that something that you encountered in your adjuster days?
Yeah, I think part of it starts with the investigation too, of knowing, before you even get on site, was there winds or hail? Was it sufficient enough to cause damage? So you can get that weather information from a great site like PLRB, which we can share with you. So go into the claim already with some investigative knowledge that, hey, it's unlikely something happened here. Then also on site, looking at some of the softer elements, like around the home, some of the softer metal that might have been damaged first before a roof would have been damaged by like hail. So knowing some of those things first, and then then it becomes a conversation with your insured of just explaining again the basics of what the contract covers. There's got to be true physical direct damage to your home based on apparel, and kind of walking folks through it. But yeah, it's a very difficult conversation to have after somebody's already been out there, made promises that aren't going to happen, and get a policyholder. Yeah, they may not know. They're excited that, okay, it's according to the contractor, it's going to be all taken care of, no issue. And then, you're put in a tough position as an adjuster of, now I've got to tell somebody that maybe that's not the case. It can be a very difficult conversation.
I can imagine. So from the legal side and just talking about laws that are in the books, I would categorize them in two buckets. Bucket number one is the legislatures of half or maybe not quite half of states. They've actually passed very specific laws about this type of conduct. So every state is different, but you'll kind of see a lot of the following things. A requirement of a grace period, 3 or 5 days, where a customer can cancel their roofing contract after receiving notice that the insurer denied the claim. You'll see requirements of a detachable notice of cancellation, which makes it really easy to cancel the contract. You'll see complete prohibitions against the roofer paying the insured's deductible. You'll see no deposits, no down payments, or easy refunds if no work is ever done. So again, these help, but a savvy roofer who is determined to work in bad faith will probably just work around these in whatever state they're in. So that's bucket number one. Bucket number two now is if the roofer starts to act as a public adjuster without a license. So most states allow public adjusters, but only if they are licensed to do so. Now, this can be kind of a gray area because at what point does a contractor step over that line and start acting as a public adjuster as opposed to just giving their opinions? It's not unusual for a contractor to be present on the site and speak with the adjuster and give some opinions. In fact, I would say that's helpful for the adjuster in many cases. The point where they begin to overstep their line is when they start representing the insured's interests on this claim, or if they say they're claim specialists or claim analysts, or they deal with the insurance companies, or they're the intermediary. That can start to be where you get problematic, where that could be construed as the contractor acting as a public adjuster. So they would be licensed, they would need to be licensed in order to do that in the state that requires it.
And I think, and I'm not sure, I'm not up to speed as much as you are, Tim, on all the requirements with public adjusters, but I think there's also some continuing education. There's things you have to do in order to keep and maintain that license in many states as well that a contractor may not have.
I believe that's true. Yeah. And some contractors might actually go through all that and do it, but
have it.
Yeah, but probably most of them don't. The other thing that was interesting about this hypothetical was the assignment of benefits. The reason this is interesting is because if you open up most homeowners policies, you'll see something that says pretty clearly, assignment of this policy will not be valid unless we give our written consent. So you might wonder, is this assignment permissible? And in most states, actually it is. Most courts make a distinction between pre-loss assignments and post-loss assignments. So what you can't do is say, here, Mr. Contractor, here's my insurance policy. Just in case I ever get a hail loss in the next 6 months, I'll give you all the insurance proceeds. That would be prohibited. But post-loss, so you've already had a hailstorm and now you're assigning the monetary proceeds from that specific claim, most courts would be okay with that. And the idea there is the claim already happened. So in theory, the loss amount should be set at that point. But that's how it works out in the courts.
And I know assignment of benefits is a huge issue in Florida and a few other states, but it still seems to be one that's kind of targeted to a few states versus many states. Tim, is that something you found, or is that?
Yeah, what I found is Florida is the one big outlier here. Seems like every 2 years the legislature passes some new comprehensive law about all of the contractors and what they're doing and how they can assign benefits. Every time I think I have a handle on it, I check back and the law changed again. So that's one we got to keep our eye on for sure.
So job security for you, Tim. It's a good thing.
That's
Right.
job
Gotta
security.
keep you on your toes.
Yes.
Always.
All right. So, Tim, again, what's the scenario?
Hail damage to a roof. The roofer takes an assignment of benefits. cuts the named insured out of the claim process, offers to pay their deductible, and tells the insurance company they represent the insured. So here the assignment of benefits is probably not going to be the big issue, but there are 3 potential problems with the roofer's conduct. Potential problem number 1, contractor saying homeowner doesn't have to submit a proof of loss. Just because there was an assignment of benefits, that doesn't necessarily relieve the named insured from still fulfilling their duties under the policy. So that's a questionable tactic. Potential problem number 2, the contractor is acting as a public adjuster. They claim to represent the insured. If this jurisdiction requires public adjusters to be licensed, this could be improper conduct. Potential problem number 3, the contractor offered to pay the deductible. Some states prohibit this by statute, so it's good to check into that.
Awesome.
So, what are our takeaways from this episode?
My takeaway is knowledge is power, and it's always good to be aware of all of the laws in the jurisdiction you are adjusting a claim in.
And whenever you're dealing with a contractor, do your homework, Alicia. Check them out. Are they licensed, bonded, insured?
So the more questions I ask, the faster they'll run away.
Absolutely. Unless they're a legitimate, great contractor who wants to work with you, and they'll be happy to answer all those questions and provide you information about other jobs they've done and the great results that they've had in the past.
So, Tim, if I'm an adjuster who wants to know more, where else can I get more information?
If you're a PLRB member, you have access to all of PLRB's materials in our database, and that includes a 50-state breakdown of all of those state statutes that I just talked about, and a discussion of aggressive contractors and how the laws of the state have dealt with that issue. And as always, if you need further information, you can submit a coverage question, and a PLRB attorney will help you out.
And I would say from the education department, we also have a lot of great live sessions that deal with aggressive contractors and stuff like assignment of benefits. We also have some online educational opportunities for folks as well. So check us out under the old education tab at plrb.org.
For example,
all right, good to know.
Yeah, for example, there is some information on investigating fraudulent roofing claims. So, as Mike said, go to www.plrb.org. Under our education tab, you'll find information about fraudulent roofing claims. So,
Thanks,
with that
Alicia.
being said, follow us on. Are we still on Instagram? Oh, follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. And until next time, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Mike.
All right, see you later.
Thanks, guys.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies and counsel as appropriate.